Well, because when people are dabbling with the drug, it's fun and games and party. And when they're addicted, it's the beginning of the hell.
In my view, if people are going to engage in a behavior, even if it's made illegal, it becomes more dangerous for those people.
Want to join me here? Won't you be seated, please, ladies and gentlemen? Come on, Dr. Jaffe, Mr. Krogh, Mr. Hurley. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to summarize for you the meeting that I have just had with the bipartisan leaders, which began at 8 o'clock and was completed 2 hours later. I began the meeting by making this statement, which I think needs to be made to the nation. America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
It was invented in the late 19th century. It's basically it's two morphine molecules linked by a third atom. It induces pleasure, it relieves pain.
In general, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that the drugs of addiction interferes with. And that's involved with pleasure. So that's how people start to get their addiction, is they're hungry for the pleasure. And so they go after the things that lead to an increase in that. So I worked at the Carrier Foundation in New Jersey, and I was on an adolescent unit. But when I did my on-call, I was covering the whole hospital, which was adults and adolescents. And about a fourth of the whole population were people with addiction. So I saw it and was involved in the treatment of it.
But I think it's important to check in, see how they're doing, seeing if I guess one of the problems is that to know if the pain is still there, they have to stop the drug. Oh no, now I hurt again. Okay, let's start it again. And then there's probably an attempt to avoid that. So, I'm not a physician, but I just think that needs to be monitored carefully.
I truly believe some people do need medicines, but you got to find the right medicine and you got to handle it carefully. And, the person has to be honest about how they're using it so that it doesn't become addicted.
Although you have to push them into treatments that we designate as being curative, we have a waiting list of several hundred people who want to participate in a methadone treatment program. Now, when we say a methadone treatment program, we don't mean simply substituting methadone for the heroin.
But methadone was something that was less expensive, and it was more like maintenance than fix or cure. It was more like, this will keep them from breaking the law to get the money to buy the heroin, and they won't die from withdrawal. So that was sort of where it was coming in. It was like a middle solution.
My thoughts on that have evolved. Like, I had a close friend who was a heroin addict, and then he started going to a methadone clinic. And I just felt like, you're still using, you should go clean. And he tried that, and then he started using drugs again, and he eventually committed suicide. These were illegal drugs. Buying them and using them and selling them, of course, was illegal. And that meant that you didn't always know exactly what you were buying. So that's one of the problems with an illegal market. In my view, if people are going to engage in a behavior, even if it's made illegal, it becomes more dangerous for those people.
It is necessary first to have a new organization. And the new organization will be within the White House. Dr. Jaffe, who will be one of the briefers here today, will be the man directly responsible. He will report directly to me. And he will have the responsibility to take all of the government agencies, 9, that deal with the problems of rehabilitation, in which his primary responsibilities will be research and education, and see that they work not at cross purposes, but work together.
Again, reactions were mixed. I'm sure a lot of people thought this is a really good idea, but it in my view, it was not a good idea. It was punitive. It made people's lives worse. It didn't help the situation. And it just, and then carried on, with the war on drugs, and then Nancy Reagan's Just Say No, continued that philosophy. And I just think it's not helpful. It was the belief that we enforce we make treatment available. We certainly support treatment. And that was the major emphasis of his office, as I recall. But it was considered that treatment was compatible with enforcement. And I think that was not a constructive approach.
His voice was happening at the same time that Woodstock was happening. Love, sex, and rock and roll, drugs, like that was out there as one version of everything, and then Nixon's "this is all bad and terrible," and that's the other version. So, I think young people at the time felt like his version wasn't all the truth.
Out there who still isn't clear about what doing drugs does? Okay, last time. This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs.
Useless. Next to useless. Some people who just would probably never use drugs anyway will say, oh, good, no, I'm not going to use drugs. I'm just going to say no. But I think that did nothing, next to nothing, to reduce the incidence and prevalence of drug use in this country.
I don't think they were that successful, especially don't say no. That doesn't give you much of anything. If people could have said no, they would have said no.
Right.
You want to bring people in. You want to include them. You don't want to exclude them and drive them out. You want to give them paths back to health, to positive connections with family and friends, to positive kinds of work.
It will take a shift in the attitude of the whole society to go down more of a route of help an addict get free of the addiction, rather than what are we going to do with these druggies.